ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to the stage Dan Elwell. Mr. and Mrs. Dickson. Mr. and Mrs. Dickson. And U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Elaine L. Chao.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of colors and remain standing for our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You can be seated. Well, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see so many familiar faces from industry here to celebrate the swearing in of Steve Dickson. And I have the honor, and I'm very delighted, to introduce our Secretary of Transportation, Elaine L. Chao. Previously, she served as Secretary of Labor, the first Asian American woman in American history to be appointed to the President's Cabinet. Secretary Chao began her executive career in public service, working on transportation issues at the White House. She then served as Deputy Maritime Administrator, Chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission, and Deputy Secretary of Transportation. In addition, she has served as President and CEO of United Way of America and Director of the Peace Corps. Her career clearly has a unifying theme: helping people and promoting their safety. At the Department of Transportation, she believes in the unique role of the FAA in advancing aviation safety worldwide. The FAA is benefiting from Secretary Chao's focus on safety, infrastructure, and innovation, and ensuring that America remains a global leader in aviation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Secretary Chao.
Thank you, Dan. And I'm going to have some things to say about Dan afterwards. But welcome to the Department of Transportation. We are delighted to have the Deputy Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, here today. As some of you may know, Jeff was the Deputy Secretary at the U.S. Department of Transportation when the President called me and said, "Do you think I can have Jeff Rosen?" And I said, "Yes, sir." No hesitation. But Jeff, we miss you. Thank you so much for coming back and celebrating this very important event with us. So Jeff Rosen. And let me also give a shout out to Acting Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, David Prokosky. Want him to stand up? And Acting Deputy Administrator of TSA, Transportation Security Administration, Patricia Cogswell. Patricia, stand up. We are all here today to swear in the 18th Federal Aviation Administration Administrator, Steve Dickson. First, let me introduce Steve's guests: his mother, Joy Dickson, his wife, Janice Dickson, his sons, Andrew and Ben Latrillo, his daughters, Elizabeth and Brianna, as well as Brianna's family. Also attending are his father-in-law, Hank Berger, his brother and sister-in-law, Dr. Jeff Bell and Dr. Anita Bell. And finally, his niece, Sarah Norell. Where is Sarah? Sarah's over there. And her husband, Engine. In addition to family, Steve has many other co-workers and former co-workers and friends here with us today. Steve has taken the helm during a historic period of change and has the right experience for the job. A graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, Steve served in the Air Force and flew the F-15 fighter. Later, he joined Delta Airlines, where he flew 5 different aircrafts, including the Boeing 737. As Delta's Senior Vice President of Flight Operations, he oversaw operations, flight training, and regulatory compliance. He earned his law degree from Georgia State University and has served as chairman of several industry stakeholder groups and served on several federal advisory committees. So Steve is very well prepared to implement our #1 priority, which is safety. The second priority is rebuilding and refurbishing infrastructure to enable the growth of a vibrant economy, keep our country productive and competitive, and improve the quality of life for everyone. The FAA makes significant infrastructure investments that are critical to this administration's commitment to improving infrastructure. And the third department priority is preparing for the future by engaging with new emerging technologies to address legitimate public concerns about safety, security, and privacy without hampering innovation. And this is especially important at this time of historic aviation innovation. For the first time in decades, civilian supersonic flight is back in the news as development continues on aircrafts that produce quieter sonic booms. The bipartisan FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018 directed the FAA to demonstrate global leadership in safe and efficient operations of civil supersonic aircrafts. Then we also have drones, or so-called unmanned aircraft systems. Drones are another major development. There are over 1.4 million registered drones in the United States, of which more than 390,000 are registered for commercial use. And the number of FAA registered drone operators, a new job category that didn't exist 5 years ago, has nearly tripled since 2017. And new uses are being found for drones all the time. For example, surveying, search and rescue, package delivery, and carrying passengers. Yes, carrying passengers even. The department is helping to chart a course for the safe integration of these innovations into our national airspace. And the three most recent initiatives are allowing the testing of drones in a variety of environments under restricted conditions. For example, helping advance drone airspace management and developing and implementing a framework for the remote drone ID. These all have security implications. And the FAA also has a lead role to play in commercial space. Thanks to reusable rockets and other innovations, America has regained first place in commercial space launches for the first time in 14 years. And to keep pace, the department is overhauling outdated and cumbersome commercial space licensing procedures and reorganizing the Office of Commercial Space Transportation. It has also created our nation's first Office of Spaceports. In all these endeavors, the number one task of the FAA is safety. The FAA has long been regarded as the gold standard in aviation safety worldwide. And the FAA has in fact helped to raise the standard of safety for aviation interests and stakeholders all around the world. This is a tremendous accomplishment. But the recent loss of 2 Boeing 737 MAX aircrafts and loved ones overseas is a reminder that the FAA cannot take its global safety leadership position for granted. Safety requires constant effort and unflagging dedication to this core mission and value. No matter the tremendous gains in aviation safety, there is always room for improvement. And the installation of a new administrator is an important opportunity to take stock on how well the FAA is doing in carrying out its critical safety functions. And I have asked Steve to assess the performance of the agency and the results of the ongoing investigations and to make recommendations about any needed reforms. And I know that he and the team are ready for the challenge. Now, before I proceed with the swearing in, I'd like to take a few moments to commend Dan Elwell, who has been serving as Deputy Administrator, Acting Administrator of the FAA since January 7th, 2018. And by the way, I am told that the previous FAA Administrator, Michael Huerta, is here today. And if Michael is here, I want to acknowledge him as well. So Dan took over after Michael left, And I want to say that Dan is a true patriot, a real professional whose knowledge, experience, expertise, and dedication to aviation has guided us through this administration. Dan has demonstrated calmness, steadiness, and determined leadership during a very challenging time for the FAA. He's been the public face of the FAA in recent months, and we want to thank him for his dedication and commitment to America's preeminence in aviation and to increasing the standards of aviation safety. Dan will be a great partner to Steve, and I'm confident that they're going to be known as a dynamic duo. So if you can give a round of applause to Dan Elwell. And now it's my pleasure to administer the official oath of office to Steve Dickson. Steve, why don't you and your wife move on to center stage and let's get started. I state your name.
I, Steve Dickson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
on which I'm about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. You can kiss your wife. So, no, stay here. You can take a few pictures. Yeah. Put your hand up. Put your hand up.
Okay. Do this?
Okay. Great. And now we're going to have you sign.
All right. You can sit.
You should come. And then have your wife stand right behind you. This is important. You got to participate in the whole thing. Now this side. Move over there. Dave, can you move over there? You'll look better for him. I'm an expert. Thank you. Great. And we'll go back now.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 18th Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, Steve Dickson.
Thank you. I haven't even done anything yet. So I'm in that coveted post-lunch slot here. So at least if I'm bad, you won't remember because you've fallen asleep. But anyway, thank you for that kind introduction, and thanks to everyone for being here today. I'd like to thank President Trump and, of course, Secretary Chao for their confidence in me to lead the FAA during this very important time. It was an honor to receive the President's nomination, and the Secretary's support was vital during my confirmation process, so thank you for that very much. I'd also like to thank our MC, Deputy Administrator Dan Elwell, and now I can call him Deputy Administrator, not acting anymore. Dan exercised strong principled leadership during a very challenging time in the agency's history. And you served our country and the aviation industry with tremendous distinction, as well as style and class. And we just really look forward to working with you and the outstanding team at the FAA as we move forward together. So thank you, Dan. Looking out today, I see so many friends, colleagues, leaders from across the aviation industry who are so critical to the safety and success in aviation that we enjoy as a nation. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for coming. Janice and I are extremely blessed that so many friends made the trip to be with us here today. My biggest thanks are for my family, and they're occupying almost the entire front row here. My mom, Joy, my father-in-law, Hank Borger, both were able to make the trip, and we're so thankful that you all are here with us today. Sadly, my dad, Bill, passed away in May about 6 days after my confirmation hearing. Went back a few days ago, and he sent me an encouraging email right after the hearing, which I still keep. But I know that he's looking down right now with great pride, and I love you, Dad. To my biggest supporter, though, the love of my life, my wife, Janice. She's the glue that holds our family together. She's the one who got all of our friends here, our family, and this is it's kind of like a military operation. You know, it's very complicated. There's a lot of contingency plans that have to be accounted for. One of those contingencies actually popped up last night, and that's that our daughter-in-law went into labor last night with our first granddaughter. So the return plans have changed a little bit. But honey, I know the FAA wasn't in your original flight plan, and we're diverting from our intended destination here for a few years, but I promise you we will get there. And I love you and appreciate you and appreciate your support so much. So with that, I'm reminded of that basic principle of military change of command speeches. Be brief, be brilliant, and be gone. So let's get on with it. The U.S. aviation system is the safest, most dynamic, and innovative in the world. And it's largely due to the collaborative approach to safety championed by the FAA and shared by various segments of the industry represented here today. Your presence here sends a strong message to the traveling public and to those who operate in our airspace and to the international aviation community, that while we have earned their trust through our robust approach to safety, the job is not done. In fact, it's never done. We all have to work together to retain and in places restore that trust. So I'm honored to join the outstanding team at the FAA. I want all FAA people to know that I look forward to working with them to ensure that our aviation system maintains its proper place, leading the world in both safety and operational performance. Nowhere else in the world sees the volume, complexity, and pace of innovation that we have in our aviation system in America. And that certainly presents challenges, but it also presents a lot of opportunity. The public and all those who work in American aviation should know that the FAA will continue to lead as a values-driven organization. Our highest and most important value, of course, as the Secretary said, is safety. This cannot be compromised. A lesson I learned in my service to the country in the Air Force, and that I will bring to my leadership of the FAA, is that safety really is a journey. It's not a destination. And it's a journey that we must embark upon with renewed vigor each and every day, indeed each and every flight, if you think about it. At this moment, an entire fleet of U.S.-made aircraft is grounded due to 2 tragic accidents overseas. My heart and my prayers go out to the family of those who perished in Indonesia and Ethiopia. And I want to again be clear and absolutely committed that the FAA is a safety-driven organization and safety is my highest priority. This plane will not fly in commercial service again until I'm completely assured that it is safe to do so. The FAA is not following any timeline for returning the aircraft to service. Rather, we're going where the facts lead us and diligently ensuring that all technology and training is present and correct before the plane returns to passenger service. Now, throughout the U.S. aviation sector, any safety program, whether it's at an airline, a manufacturer, an airport, or even at a regulator, has at its foundation a just culture that places an extremely high value on frontline employee reporting. Programs like ASAP, ATSAP, FOQA, and ASIAS provide extremely valuable data that allow us to take proactive safety actions. Now, as an aside, you can see that I'm already adjusting to Washington quite well because I used 4 acronyms in a row in that last sentence. But seriously, these safety reporting programs require collaboration between the operator, the regulator, and labor. The benefits of this collaboration have been demonstrated time and again, and we'll do everything in our power to ensure the FAA promotes and walks the walk on employee safety reporting programs. And you can expect us to take actions to ensure this same philosophy permeates all sectors of the aviation system. Now, to the industry, the FAA strives to be a constructive partner with the wider industry, but we can never and will never forget that we're a regulator whose first responsibility is the safety of the traveling public. The FAA will seek out consensus, but ultimately will act in the best interests of the safety of the aviation system as a whole. And I've learned a lot in my industry work about consensus over the years. And what this means as we work together, it's important to recognize that we won't always agree. But you can count on me to deal with each issue with honesty, integrity, and from a standpoint of mutual respect. And my team at the FAA will too. Maintaining the highest levels of safety while adapting to technological advancements will also be a key part of our success. In fact, it's really foundational with where we are as an industry right now. The rate of change is something that will require the focus and attention not only of the FAA, but all aviation stakeholders. Innovation, automation, new entrants like the increased pace of commercial space and drones, you see these things every day in the headlines. And to be successful as a regulator and air navigation service provider, the FAA must be able to operate ahead of that rate of change. We can't be lagging. So I will not allow the FAA to be overly bureaucratic or to ever accept the inertia that's so prevalent in large organizations. Our mantra must be continuous improvement, because what we did yesterday will simply not be good enough tomorrow. It's a great privilege to be able to stand before you today with the opportunity to lead the premier aviation authority in the world. I'd like to thank the Secretary again for her support, advice, and leadership of this department. And I'm grateful again to the President for his nomination and the opportunity to serve our country again. And finally, I'm honored to be in the position to be able to help write the next chapter in the great history of the FAA. I'm excited to come on board, roll up my sleeves, and I'm humbled to work with all of you and the team at the FAA. And so I think our best days are ahead of us. Thank you again for coming today.
Those are excellent remarks that I couldn't agree with more, Steve. Thank you. And before we conclude, I'd also like to thank Secretary Chao for her kind remarks. And thank Secretary Chao and the President and all of you for allowing me an opportunity to be acting administrator for as long as I was. It's been a humbling experience that I was very pleased to do. And just as an aside, before I step away from the podium, Steve and I, some have asked, Steve and I go back almost 40 years. In fact, the very first thing I had to do as a brand new cadet at the Air Force Academy all those years ago was memorize his full name and hometown. And I think it's kind of fitting that all these years later, I can still say his full name and his hometown for at least the next 5 years. So, and then, Madam Secretary, I think dynamic duo is a great term because there is no daylight between Steve and my views on safety and all of the priorities of the department. But I don't want to call him Batman, and I don't want him calling me Robin, if that's okay. So, folks, that concludes today's ceremony, and please join us for refreshments in the back of the room, and thank you all for coming.